All right, hello everyone. I'm gonna give probably a whirlwind talk about marketing in the metaverse right now. I give this talk, I'm starting to give this talk a lot. And I could probably give a different talk every day because there's so much news that comes every day at the moment. So we'll start off just by getting some fundamentals in place, and then we'll dive into trends, and I'm gonna try to do 30 slides in 15 minutes, and we'll see how I do. The first thing to say is that this is an evolving conversation, right? Technology, it's impacting all of our lives. It's impacting the way we do business with brands. It's impacting the decisions we make. The stat on the bottom, I think, is the one that I want to focus on right now for this one slide, which is to say that 62% of people, we did a bunch of research into the metaverse, and what 62% of people said on a global survey that we ran was that they have a stronger relationship with brands that have a strong digital presence. So at its foundation of why are we moving towards metaverse, why are we moving in a direction that's more digital, that's a good reason to think about it from a marketing perspective. And now what is the metaverse, right? Well, it is a place that is increasingly dynamic and increasingly experiential. I'll get into this, but ultimately, let's think of it right now as just a word and a technology, but everybody's rushing in, right? So you've got Facebook, their keynote, I don't know if everybody saw it, but they have obviously changed their name to Meta, so they're making a big bet. Microsoft also making very big bets. They've got a technology called Mesh, which is more of an open platform, weaving everything together, starting to bring their experiences in. This is a view of what Teams will look like as they're putting it together. It's a much better view of Teams than the Teams that I deal with every day. I quite like this one in comparison. You get the idea. Unity, which is one of the biggest gaming companies in the world, they just bought Weta Digital. Weta Digital traditionally is a business that does 3D visual effects for studio film production. But obviously, if we need to build 3D worlds, there's probably no one better than, well, Weta would be one of the best. So they spent $1.6 billion on Weta. That was about 2 weeks ago. Nike about, I don't know, I want to say 5 days ago, but maybe it's plus or minus, right? Nike has teamed up with Roblox to launch Nike Land. And so this will be an interactive and emerging world within the Roblox space. And then obviously, and you'll excuse me for not having put all the logos in, just going with names, and this is far from a complete list. But then you have a huge number of brands that are diving in to NFTs in one way or another. And there's some really exciting cases of what's actually happening in the NFT space, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But so you can see what's happening. And when I think about the metaverse, though, I don't think of it's this thing, it's this place. That's the wrong way to look at it. The metaverse is a word, we're using it more now, but ultimately it's a spectrum, and we've been going there for a very long time. It's a spectrum of how much time you spend in a digitally connected world, right? Are you pure real world? Are you pure immersive world? Or actually are you digitally connected in the overlap? And what you can see when you think of that immersiveness and you think about that time, we started off in kind of search, and you might engage with search a little bit. You might browse the internet. I don't know how many people still talk about browsing the internet. We go to social first now. But that was less than an hour of people's time in a day. And when you think about putting on glasses or putting on something that's going to cover your eyes and track your eyes and respond to it and give a visual overlay, that could be all waking hours. When you think about the watch that you might wear that's tracking your data, okay, that might be fully immersive. The immersiveness is low, but it's 24 hours a day that you're going to have that on. So there's the data input to be able to augment and create richer engagements that go with it. So all of this is a spectrum of how much engagement we're able to put between ourselves in a real world and a digital world, and it's a spectrum that we're moving along. And we're getting to the point now where we can push towards that kind of fully immersed environment, which is why people are talking about metaverse more, but ultimately this is the road we've been on. And there's a quote from Spider-Man, which is that with great power comes great responsibility. And this is the inverse, or not really the inverse, but the kind of adjunct of that for marketing in the metaverse, which is that with greater engagement come greater opportunities, right? And we've seen brands take that approach of how do we drive engagement over time, and the metaverse is going to offer a lot. The trends I'm going to talk about today are four. We're going to talk about playing, we're going to talk about entertaining, we're going to talk about learning, and we're going to talk about working. So if we look at how brands engage in that space, what you're seeing is kind of four big things, right? You're looking at gamevertising, which is creating ads within a gaming environment or creating an immersive gaming environment that you can be a part of, but that gaming side. You've got exclusivity and access. You've got how you get to commerce. And then you've got kind of building communities. And that community can be work, that community can be based on hobbies, that community can be based on a number of things. But that's where we look at. When we talk about gamevertising, I spoke at a gaming conference here a while back, a couple weeks ago, and didn't need to quote this stat, but we'll talk about it here. The gaming industry generates about $155 billion in revenue a year. That number is growing at a massive rate, so it's looking to get to about 260 by 2025, so you can see the rate of growth. This is bigger than anything else in the entertainment industry. So there is a natural kind of vacuum and desire to be a part of this. I was looking actually the other day at some of the esports competitions and some of the world championships, and the figures of what people are winning are more than you win for winning Wimbledon. So I mean, you can kind of start to see just how much emphasis there is there. And so that's where people are, but then you're starting to see the different worlds that are being created, right? So this is a picture from Vans. They have worked with Roblox, just like Nike was doing, in order to put together an immersive skate park, a world for Vans, but Hyundai is building an adventure within Roblox. There's a number of people that are starting to put together this view of creating their brand world that you can be a part of. Another view of how this can work is through kind of partnerships. So you've got two views here. You've got Gucci, and who's working with a company called Zepeto to create avatars effectively, but avatars that will represent a mixture of you, represent their clothes, bring those things together, and then you've also got I think we've got the North Face and Pokemon Go there, and you can start to see how these things are starting to come together and how these worlds are overlapping in order to put together what are collectible, what are really interesting elements, desirable elements in collectibles in that sense. This is another version of gamevertising, right? So those happen in-game. We can go into an environment that is dedicated to a game already. There is another idea of gamevertising, which is how do I make my product the game itself, right? And so this is a piece that was done based on a beer company in the United States, and it's an augmented reality layer where hopefully the video works. Let's see. No, come on. I can't get the video to work. This isn't good. I've lost my video. I'm really sorry. What is supposed to happen is that if you imagine, if you will, you put your camera up to this beer can, and all of a sudden the beer can transforms into Space Invaders, and you can play Space Invaders right there. So this is what's supposed to happen. We then get into the next trend around access and exclusivity. And kind of the big view of this is concerts, right? Justin Bieber launched his concert about 5 days ago, but whether it's Travis Scott, whether it's Marshmello, there's a whole bunch of examples, and the numbers that people are getting are amazing. You are getting access, obviously, because it's a global event, single time. You get people from all over the world. There's huge inclusivity that you're seeing that's coming along through these, and this format is evolving very, very quickly. So this is something that you're going to start to see. But on that idea of exclusivity, you're starting to see a lot of purchases that happen in that online world as well. So this is the Gucci Sneaker Garage. Again, luxury brands are quite big into this, where you could go, there's an app, you can sit there, design your own sneakers, buy your own sneakers, Gucci branded. They exist only in a digital world, but you can dress your avatar in these Gucci sneakers, etc. The price point on these, really low, actually, about $12. So they're making a fairly affordable Gucci product where you can outfit yourself in a virtual world and create that exclusive layer at a very accessible entry point, which is quite interesting. At the same time, you've got other brands that are going into the sneaker space. There's a company called RFKT, or RTFK, and they recently launched a pair of, multiple pairs of trainers that were NFT trainers, and they raised $3.1 million selling these, and I think it took them about 6 hours to sell $3.1 million with trainers. the average price was well above what you would pay for trainers. And then there's another company that's also based out of New York that recently has done exactly the same thing, where if you buy the virtual trainers, they drop ship the real ones to you. So you actually buy in the virtual space, but you get the real. So these are the kind of the evolution of what's happening with this access and exclusivity, and it should not be discounted. The prices people are willing to pay for virtual objects is already quite high, and it is going higher. You can see that through, if you think about NFTs and you think about kind of the play to earn space, Axie Infinity, and the space, the value of those NFTs has gone up astronomically, but you're also seeing it through all kinds of other virtual goods. Now you're seeing Decentraland and spaces that are starting to build virtual spaces. In fact, the country of Barbados is the first country to have built a purely metaverse embassy. And so they've put an embassy into the metaverse. All very interesting, right? We then get into this idea of retail, right? So what is marketing without doing the actual transaction? So let's talk about how we push people to transaction. And here, this is a view of a kind of Burberry store, but they're quite famous for creating experiential stores in the first instance. But what you wind up here is a virtual environment which is interactive, where you can click on product, where you can get a deeper dive into things, where you can actually interact with the product and get the details of the product right there through, at this point, a screen, but you can imagine how this is going to continue to evolve and become more and more immersive, right? You've got a whole separate view of and I think this one's quite interesting, of what retail could look like. So this is a company called 4K, and what they are doing, as they say, is digitizing collectibles. The example I'm going to talk about is watches, right? So let's say you want to invest in a Rolex. You want to buy a Rolex. They hold their value pretty well. You can go and buy the NFT of the Rolex. You wind up with a digital NFT in your wallet showing that you have this Rolex. They buy a physical Rolex. They have the physical Rolex. They store it. It's in a vault. It's theirs. It's yours, actually. You own it. You have access to it. But you can't have it. They keep it. It stays brand new. It stays pristine. You have an NFT that says you own it. If you want it, you can burn the NFT. You can collect the watch and burn the NFT, but you can't have both the NFT and the physical watch. You get one. You can only have possession of one or the other. But it's a whole new transaction method where actually you can start buying these collectibles, and someone will store them perfectly for you. You have evidence of ownership. You have effectively the deed, but you don't have the product. And so you're starting to see these kind of new retail models that are springing up around things like that. We then get into the idea of community. I've got 2 minutes. I'll try to get through this quick. The obvious one is Paris Saint-Germain, right? Sports is probably one of the biggest communities that you see in the first place. But the interesting thing was when Lionel Messi was transferred over to Paris Saint-Germain, part of his contract was paid in tokens. And as a result of his participation with that token, the desire for token ownership exploded within the team, and what you saw was the value of that token go up as everyone wants to be a part of that community. So this tokenization element starts to reward the community. If they were a part of that community already, they saw the value of their membership effectively go up. So you're starting to see how tokenization is driving community on that front. And another community that I want to talk about, also sports, is what Nike Running Club obviously is a fairly well-established community. This is not a video about community, but I put it in here because it is about running. And so I'm going to show one short video that overlays an experiment that Nike launched. I think this is about a month old, but they launched this in New York to show how running in the real world overlaps with the metaverse. Let's see. And so the point here is you're now running, you're following the pigeon as a motivator, but also they've got elements that they can overlay within your run to make you go faster, to congratulate you. In the way that they had done it with your ears before, they're now starting to go not just, hey, you ran your fastest mile through audio, but how do we create an enriching world? So you just saw that kind of giant augmented reality beanstalk. You can get speed. wait just a moment, and then I'll show one more thing that this video does, because it's quite nice. You get completely surreal elements that are possible. There's another company doing something very similar to this, where what they do is they give you they put a fake avatar in front of you. So if you want to run a 5-minute mile, you can tell the app, I want to run a 5-minute mile, and it will put a pacer in front of you. So as you run, you'll have a virtual person who's going to run a perfect 5-minute mile, and so long as you keep pace with that avatar, you're there. You go faster than the avatar, you won't see it anymore, you're running ahead of time. You get the idea. Now, the last bit, just to kind of close up, is what's next, right? And where are we going with this? And this, to me, is a really interesting point to think about, because we are at the beginning of this journey. I showed it as a progression. We're not quite at the beginning, but we're at the kind of part of the curve where we're going to go parabolic. So if we think about tokenization, and we talk about what I just talked about from a community perspective, think about that from a gig economy perspective, and the engagement that brands can start to create around kind of influencer communities, those kind of communities, to be able to use tokenization to drive that kind of value exchange that's going to exist. That's going to be a huge element. From a CRM perspective, you wind up with a whole new view. Let's take an example here where a brand like Mercedes might change the title of the car from being a piece of paper to being an NFT. Now all of a sudden there's a contract address that's associated with every Mercedes-Benz owner in the world. It's anonymized. I can't see it, but what I could do if I want to talk, if I'm Hilton Hotels and I want to talk to Mercedes owners, is I could send and airdrop something else to every one of them. That something else could be another NFT, that something else could be a message, but all of a sudden I can target with precision who these people are. And so you're going to start to see innovations around CRM with NFTs. And lastly, around brand partnerships. So Bored Ape Yacht Club, probably one of the more famous NFT collections of the kind of 10,000 image type of collections, the kind of profile picture collections. They just ran big parties in New York during NFT NYC. Very collaborative group, but also huge draw, hugely valuable. And you can start to imagine, if you look into that they will become a similar brand to Supreme. And you'll start to see those collaborations starting to take place. And this is something that people are talking about quite a bit. So with that, I'm already 3 minutes over. I apologize, but thank you very much.